Okay, we're going to start off a little early tonight, as we have been for the past week or so, with some daily news update appetizers. So let's see what's going on here.
The party that gave us silence is violence, right? They're the ones who say that after a mass shooting, after any Republican says or does anything that they don't like, every other Republican has to be asked about it. Do you denounce? You denounce it. Like, silence is violence. And now they have a guy actually calling for the murder of Republicans and their children. And no Democrat has called for this guy to step down. No, not one prominent Democrat. And not only that, but you look at the leftist messaging around this guy, Jay Jones, and what actually went down here. And it's lies. It's total. Listen, I'm sorry to do this to you, but here's Joy Behar on The View. Listen to what they are peddling. This is 24 hours ago to their audience about this whole scandal. SOT 16.
Can I mention, because what's come up in this conversation is this individual, Jay Jones, who's running for attorney general in Virginia. He's about a 36-year-old man running for attorney general who had some leaked text messages come out where he aspired to violence against Republicans. I don't know why it's hard for people, but I'm not this table.
I saw that.
Let me just say
that. But only Democrats denounced him, no Republicans.
But he's a Democrat.
Yeah,
but that's my point.
Democrats denounced him.
Yeah. But if I can finish my point,
all right.
Denounce both. We don't need to equivocate. We don't need to say, well, he did this, so then Republicans.
No,
but both are terrible. Both are equally awful.
Okay, so she was too interested in her own point to listen to the inanity coming at her from right field there. That only Democrats denounced Jay Jones, no Republicans. This is the party that gave us silence is violence, right? They're the ones who say that after a mass shooting, after any Republican says or does anything that they don't like, every other Republican has to be asked about it. Do you denounce? You denounce it. Like, silence is violence. And now
it's just another one. We can only take so much Pelosi. But remember, this is how her demeanor was. This is how our elected officials act when they are under a tiny bit of pressure on January 6th.
This way, by not being ready.
We have totally failed, and we have to take some responsibility. Did you hear that?
For not holding the security accountable for what could have happened.
Yeah, it's your building. The president and the acting secretary of defense were going to send the National Guard in. Stephen Sund explained that he called to get approval and permission to deploy additional resources. And he was just FU buttoned. Nope, we don't want it. No, it's just another one. We can only take so much Pelosi. But remember, this is how her demeanor was. This is how our
rivers in rural areas were on fire. Communities getting poisoned and dumped on by corporations like Deloitte, having air that's drinkable.
Okay, I'm no environmental expert here, but I'm pretty sure that if your air is drinkable, that's not good. Also, Deloitte is an accounting company. They don't put stuff into the water. That's like accusing a personal injury law firm of pumping toxic fumes into the atmosphere. Literally, what are you talking about? And the only rivers that I've seen on fire are the rivers of our cash flowing out of Congress. This is what happens when you elect somebody to Congress who has the IQ of a grapefruit. If you're going to be a socialist who doesn't believe that corporations should even exist, you might want to start with at least knowing what those corporations actually do. Then again, the concept that men can't be women also really trips this woman up. So, we probably shouldn't expect miracles.
My legal team just informed the Portland Police Bureau just minutes ago that we are most likely going to be filing federal civil rights litigation against them in the coming weeks, and we are demanding their communications with these Antifa groups. We are going to show you that this is real, this is organized, and in Portland in particular, they actually call themselves Antifa. It's not like these other Antifa groups that don't actually use the term Antifa. Rose City Antifa is the original Antifa that you have a bunch of offshoots from now. That's what they call themselves. It's Rose City Antifa. You've got these groups spread all throughout the country. You have actually two people, I believe, of North Texas Antifa that were just indicted today by a federal grand jury for terrorism-related charges over their ambush of ICE agents there in Alvarado, Texas, back in July. So you can say all you want that, oh, Antifa isn't real or whatever. We're proving it. We're documenting it. And we're forcing these leftist governments that are colluding with them to turn over those records to, prove that they're lying when they say that they don't exist. They know they exist because they work with them.
The president found a creative solution to keep the troops paid, and rather than congratulate the president for doing that, this unprecedented action to get our troops paid, the Democrats want to sue him for it. They're saying that it's illegal. This just shows they don't care about the people who are hurting. They are shutting down the government purely for partisan politics because they don't like Donald Trump. And the only people that are suffering from that are federal government employees who are being laid off from their jobs, who are not being paid for their jobs, our military, our federal law enforcement, and the American people who can't catch a plane with holiday season coming up because flights are being delayed and canceled. Democrats need to do the right thing. And I don't know if you guys caught the CNN town hall last night with AOC and Bernie Sanders, but I sure did. And it's very clear that they are now the leaders of the Democrat Party. And the Democrats are in complete disarray. And we hope a few moderate Democrats with some common sense will step up to the plate and do the right thing to vote to open the federal government.
John Bolton indicted on charges of mishandling classified information.
Future attack plans, human intelligence sources, things that are, as other commentators have said, could get people killed. It wasn't just like, oh no, they know that we're gonna, spend more here in the Department of Defense. No, these were very real things that related to our national security that our adversaries even gained access because he wasn't using secure channels. He had an accredited SCIF in his home. Could have taken it and done what needed to do in the proper channels, but that wasn't the point. The point was he was trying to use it to write a book, to make money off of his service in government.
John Bolton indicted on charges.
Okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed those little snippets there. I added a couple that were a little humorous. But here we have today, episode 1718. We have information from Newsmax, Benny Johnson, Robert Gouveia, and X22 report. But before we get into that, I do have a ton of shout-outs to give. A lot of people follow me, so thank you very much. I appreciate that. Cheryl Clark, 777, just started following my channel. So did Sign In Again, followed my channel. Sal Hoon just started following my channel. Thomas M. Ank Vet just started following my channel. Rim Save 8 just started following my channel. Bubba Von Zipper just started following my channel. Hug Him 3 just started following my channel, or Hugh M. Fire Sunset just started following my channel. Turbo 91723 just started following my channel. Anna Stream 015 just started following my channel. Anchin Craw just started following my channel. JSJ3364 just started following my channel. Do Salento just started following my channel. CMO1533 just started following my channel. And Christina Paquette just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in tonight, and I hope you enjoy the content. All right, Linda Fosselman commented on my daily news wrap-up from last night. Debbie BS commented on my episode 1717. Debbie BS also commented on my extra 501A. Suits Me, Debbie BS, and Conservancy commented on my extra 501B. Debbie BS commented on my extra 501C. Debbie BS commented on my extra 502A. Debbie BS also commented on my extra 502B. Anna Stream 015 and Debbie BS commented on my One American News extra. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I greatly appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. Boom. And by the way, folks, if you would like to give me a thumbs up, that thumbs up icon is right here below the video you're watching. So just scroll down there and tap it or click it with your mouse, whatever. Okay, speaking of comments, I do have a comment from Linda Fosselman. Let me share that with you. Finally, someone who understands the definition of democracy. The United States is not a democracy. The United States is a constitutional republic. Fact. You are absolutely correct, Linda Fosselman, and thank you so much for your input. Right here's the comment that she left. Very good. Okay, jumping back here, let's see what Newsmax has to say about John Bolton faces legal reckoning amid political turmoil. The Right Squad. Okay, let's check it out.
Okay, TW, I have been waiting for this. I kind of had a source tell me that there's going to be an indictment.
You've been kind of giddy. I've been kind of feeling that giddy energy.
I have been waiting. I kind of enjoy seeing some of these political opponents of President Trump have to go answer for questions in court themselves. What do you think we see here tomorrow when he makes his first appearance?
Well, I think it's fib around and find out, right? I mean, this is a guy who spent his time making sure that Donald Trump's life was miserable. He was trusted by the president. He was leaking information out of the White House like nobody's business ever. And so I'm glad to see him finally brought to justice. Again, he needs his day in court. He's obviously presumed innocent until proven guilty, no doubt about that. But the writing's on the wall for John Bolton. He has spent a career being a bad seed. In my opinion, in many ways, he could have compromised his integrity, but not only his integrity, but the national security of this country. And the difference between this indictment against him and President Trump, the president of the United States has the ability to deem anything he wants to as unclassified.
You're right.
John Bolton does not have that ability. And so I'm interested to see where the law goes. But again, this just goes to show you people that live in glass houses shouldn't throw rocks and stones.
That is so true.
Keep your mustache out of the president's business and out of classified documents.
And I'm glad that you brought up the fact that you're supposed to be presumed innocent and get your day in court, because that was one thing that you didn't hear people say over and over again when we saw President Trump going in and out of court. Isn't that right, Harrison?
Yeah, he said the president's political career was over. He relished in the ongoing lawfare against the former president when it came to this bogus documents case that was thrown out, proved to be no there. Meanwhile, they went through the First Lady's closet. They completely upended Mar-a-Lago to find these documents, and the case went nowhere. So now we have a guy.
And it's my understanding, folks, that some of those documents were actually stashed in there, placed in there. Interesting.
Who was holier than thou, pointed his finger and his mustache at the American people and told them how bad Donald Trump was. Meanwhile, he was doing it to an 8th degree, 18 criminal federal charges on this man, all of them packing a sentence of potentially 10 years. He has a long uphill battle. And for anyone that says it's political retribution, this is not political retribution. This was 5 years in the making. The Biden DOJ also was looking at this. 2 courts in Maryland and Virginia both looked at this. Yep. He has, of course, his day in court, but it doesn't look too good for Mustache.
And I think we'll also get some more facts coming out. Mustache? I know one of my sources was saying with the Trump Mar-a-Lago raid, which you brought up, was that they were cooperating. They were actually, every time they went, they actually got documents back, which was kind of why was there a need for this over-the-top raid. The question will be if we know if John Bolton was cooperating at all before all of this had to go down. But since he was fired by President Trump, Bolton went on a rampage trying to convict the president in the court of public opinion.
If he has anything like what the indictment alleges, and of course the government will have to prove it, then he has committed very serious crimes. This is a devastating indictment. I speak here as an alumnus of the Justice Department myself, because not only is it powerful, it's very narrowly tailored. They didn't throw everything up against the wall to see what would stick. This really is a rifle shot, and I think it should be the end of Donald Trump's political career.
Right.
So, Mary Margaret, you and I kind of chatted right before the cameras went on, and you said, wasn't he on camera talking about this all the time? And there you go. So is he holier than thou? Is that kind of how things work here?
Apparently, and I have to say, I spend all my time with Legacy Press, and so I already know that the messaging we're going to be seeing coming out of this is the president is pursuing his political enemies, when, as Harrison was just saying, the Biden DOJ was looking into Bolton, and we've seen for the past 4 years, 5 years, Biden administration officials, Democrats all across the board pursuing these charges against the president, trying to put him and his sons and other members of his family in jail. So personally, I'm going to be very interested in seeing how the legacy media pursue this narrative on this topic, because it seems very clearly laid out before us, and it's frustrating. I mean, the president was talking about this in the Oval Office yesterday. He was saying, I have been seeing the DOJ, I've seen the government weaponized against me, and now when we're looking at some of these very obvious cases, I'm being the one that's being accused of being the persecutor. So it's just an interesting fact pattern to see emerge after all these years.
Right, it's like the standards in Washington are only double standards, right? So I guess, Jason, I always like to come to you when we talk about James Comey. We talk about Letitia James. You and I went back and forth on the whole Lisa Cook thing. So where are you on John Bolton?
So first of all, let me be clear. I'm not the biggest fan of John Bolton. I think he's, a neocon, war hawk, and he always has been throughout his entire political career.
Very good. Let's leave it right there.
Yeah, we all agree. Okay.
But in his book, he basically was talking about, political and diplomatic information. There wasn't any kind of operational secrets that people should be concerned about. And the political information, any political information is, hold on, is of public interest. So the public has the right to know political information.
Amazing. Yeah, I guess the courts will have to decide on that. So, at least he didn't jump to his defense too much. But it's absolutely amazing that if there were no double standards, there would be no standards at all, just like she said. Okay, this video does come from Newsmax. All right, I'm subscribed to the channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what Benny Johnson has to say about Mitch McConnell fell again. Now, I'm not playing this to make fun of Mitch McConnell. If you've listened to me at any time at all, you know that I'm really no big fan of Rhino McConnell. But this is the point of this story is, why is he serving a term as senator? I would think the honorable and respectable thing to do would say, I'm going to go ahead and resign and let the governor of Kentucky appoint another senator. But no, he's just like the Democrats. He's going to stay in there and hold on to that power just as long as he possibly can.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. This is the broken hand of a warrior, someone who has been through true battles. Is it the hands of a boxer that just finished a grueling 10 rounds in the ring? Maybe a UFC fighter? Maybe it's a coal miner? Or is it the hands of Mitch McConnell, who just finished a battle between him and gravity? This is a battle that Mitch McConnell constantly loses. And the reason why he's losing it is because Mitch McConnell is losing his faculties because he's 83 years old. Mitch McConnell entered the Senate before I was born, and he's still there, and I'm no spring chicken. Mitch McConnell is constantly bruised and battered, constantly incapable of standing on his own 2 feet, needing to be wheeled around in a wheelchair by his staff. He's so old that he's constantly shattering ribs, getting concussions, falling downstairs, and getting bruised up like he stole from the mob. Look at these photos. Look at this photo of Mitch McConnell. Look at his face. Look at his hand. This is from another brutal fall. This has been happening for years. Mitch McConnell was the leader of the Republicans in the Senate until just a few short months ago. New footage of Mitch McConnell, incapable of standing on his own 2 feet, literally just collapsing. This is from years ago. How long has this been going on? He's our own Joe Biden. It makes me very angry. They never released this video. They used to have a lot more control. But now there's a brand new video of Mitch McConnell collapsing inside of the United States Senate. It's hard to watch. And it really tells you everything about how our political class clings on to power for dear life, even though they are at the end of their lives, hopefully totally natural end of their lives. But ladies and gentlemen, as they are wheeled around in chairs and incapable of functioning under their own brain power or physical power, it's becoming ever so dangerous for people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell to even wander the Senate. Here you have a new video of Mitch McConnell just collapsing in the Senate while reporters ask him a question. Mitch McConnell is our Joe Biden. I've said it many times before.
My name is Stella. I want to ask, do you support ICE taking working people off the streets and kidnapping them?
What a shame. What a shame.
What the hell, man? What is wrong? What is wrong with everyone? As I said during the whole Joe Biden fiasco, you know, this is exactly what we saw happen to Joe Biden a million times. Joe Biden just like completely collapse. What is wrong with their families? These evil degenerates, these evil sickos. You know, they're just using the like barely warmed over corpses of their relatives for power. You know, Mitch McConnell can still like get his cousins, you know, jobs in the federal government. He can still be a thorn in Trump's side. They can still leverage him for power, just like they did with Joe Biden. Joe Biden now has horrible pancreatic cancer metastasized to his bones because his family refused to get him the help that he needed. We've been arguing for a long time. This shouldn't happen. This is elder abuse. That's awful to watch. There absolutely need to be term limits. There has to be term limits. There has to. I mean, it's immoral, actually, what we're watching happen. Senator McConnell falls in the Russell basement. This is a building, Senate building in Washington, D.C., while being questioned by members of the Sunrise movement who took the video, far left-wing movement. But I don't see them like, you have every right to ask questions. I don't see them doing anything wrong here. Did they like put hands on him? I don't see it anywhere where they like put hands on him or anything.
He just collapsed.
She's just like, she's just talking to him and he just collapses.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything wrong here. Those people are annoying on Capitol Hill, but whatever. They have a right to like talk to people. So does everybody else. You shouldn't lay hands on anyone ever, right? And I don't see that happening in here in this video. McConnell takes.
Okay, there you have it. And just as Benny said, and I said as well, I mean, they're going to hang on to the power just as long as they can. He is definitely a thorn in Donald Trump's side. I'm surprised that he was one of the senators that voted yes on the continuing resolution. There was one senator that didn't, another one from Kentucky, Rand Paul. I'm not sure what his reasoning is, why he voted no on that. I know that he would probably not be in favor of the Republicans wanting to spend $1.5 trillion. I'm thinking that he probably wants some additional cuts, but it's not the time for that. I guess. I don't know how the games are actually played. But let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link here as far as this video is concerned and show you that this video does come from Benny Johnson. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here again and scroll down here and see what Robert Gouveia has to say regarding Comey's lawyer caught in leak scandal. Isn't that interesting? Boy, it's getting deep, isn't it? Let's check this out.
Where they breached Trump's attorney's attorney-client privilege and said, your lawyers have to tell us everything about what you've done. Did Fitzgerald leak anything to anybody? Was he getting these memos and passing them on? In other words, he's complicit in the leaks? Sounds like it might be a crime.
I've always thought that James Comey was a lifelong Republican. I've been told that James Comey is a lifelong Republican. Turns out not to be true. Are you aware that James Comey used to be a communist?
James Comey's lawyer, in a little bit of extra scrutiny and well-deserved, this post brought to our attention from Svetlana Lokova, and she is saying that Comey's lawyer, who is called Patrick Fitzgerald, might be much more than just a defense attorney, might actually be a co-conspirator who should be maybe recused or disqualified from the case, or at least opened up all of his records, all of his documents to determine if he was complicit in Comey's crimes. So this goes back a ways, all the way to 2017. Remember, Patrick Fitzgerald, in the arraignment of James Comey, said it was the greatest honor of his lifetime to be able to represent James Comey in his 2 criminal charges, lying to Congress and obstruction of Congress, and was excited to be in the courtroom. But now we remember that Comey and his attorney's name appeared in the records all the way back in 2017. Sharing this post, Comey's attorney, Patrick, is likely a co-conspirator. There's a grand conspiracy. Comey's minute lie to Congress is just one small subcomponent of a much broader conspiracy, and he should be investigated, not allowed to represent him. Comey leaked classified information to him, which also made its way to the New York Times, claiming that he's using his legal privilege as a fig leaf. And if this sounds familiar, it should, because they made that same argument against President Trump, who has been largely exonerated, at least as it relates to these investigations. You remember this case all the way back from this Politico article in 2023, where they breached Trump's attorney's attorney-client privilege and said, your lawyers have to tell us everything about what you've done. Remember that this is what happened some time ago. A federal appeals court rejected Trump's bid to prevent special counsel Jack Smith from getting key documents from a lawyer for Trump. So the lawyer, they said, was open to discovery, to review. Attorney-client privilege was shattered for President Trump. Why? Oh, the crime fraud exception. You remember that? Your lawyer can't claim attorney-client privilege if he's helping you commit a crime. There's an exception to attorney-client privilege when there's a crime or there's a fraud occurring that your attorney is involved in. So Trump went to Beryl Howell, a maniac anti-Trumper judge, and she breached all of the privileges. Remember, we were sitting here going, what the hell's going on? After setting middle of the night deadlines, a 3-judge panel declined Trump's requests and said, yeah, Trump's attorney, Evan Corcoran at the time, has to give the documents over to Jack Smith. You have to, because she said that he was working with Trump. Well, what we have now is a very similar situation happening with James Comey, because according to Svetlana, this is something that appeared in an Office of Inspector General report that we have now dug up. And you remember it looked like this. August 2019, it's a document titled The Report of James Comey and His Disclosure. So the Office of the Inspector General, who's supposed to be more independent, did an analysis and wrote a review. What did James Comey do when he was disclosing information in handling certain memoranda? Well, they wrote a report, and you know whose name shows up all over the place in it? Patrick Fitzgerald, Comey's attorney. And as you can see, even shows up in the timeline. Comey was writing memo after memo and then sending them all out. Here's some more background. We've got the report that says OIG has done a bunch of research and got a bunch of findings, a lot of background on how this all works, what is top secret, all the things. Comey knows better. You can't give out classified materials. So here we have a timeline of relevant events. January 6th, Comey meets with Trump, and January 7th, Comey finishes one memo on the FBI's secure computer system. The memo is classified, secret, no foreign or con. But he emails the memo to a bunch of people, does not take a copy of that memo home. Then he has dinner with Trump, January 27th, 2017. All right, Trump is just coming into office. Comey writes another memo on his personal laptop about his dinner. It states that during the dinner, Trump told Comey he wants loyalty. Memo 2, another unrelated comment by Trump. Now, he does not mark Memo 2 as classified. He places a signed printout of Memo 2 in his personal safe at home and gives a second printout to the chief of staff. During a classification review, the FBI determines that 6 words in the memo are actually classified. Okay, you actually cannot talk about those things. James, he's writing memos, printing them out, marking them unclassified. Does not mark that one as unclassified. Okay, so he writes memos with classified documents, passes them out, and they're classified, but he says they're not classified. That's illegal. Comey writes Memo 3 on a classified FBI computer system because he thinks it has FISA info. This is on February 8th. Memo 3 summarizes interactions with Reince Priebus, RNC, and Flynn and others. Now, he does not mark the printout as classified and shares it with others. Goes into the FBI, types a memo up on a FISA computer system, and then shares it with everyone. Shares it with others at the FBI. FBI later determines in June, oh, guess what? It's again secret and it's classified. You can't share it. February 14th comes through. Another memo talking about Trump. He does not mark it as classified. The FBI determines does not contain classified info, but marks it at a lower level. Then March 1, Memo 5, 4-line email to his chief of staff on his unclassified mobile device, and they find FBI not classified. Okay, so some of it's classified, some of it's not. Comey then comes before the House Permanent Select Committee. March acknowledges that we've opened up an investigation into Russian interference, which was all rigged previously in the December meeting with Obama, and then they released the ICA in early January, the Intelligence Community Assessment, which reversed all of the prior findings. So then March, Comey writes another memo about a 10-minute phone call with President Trump. Comey gives a signed printout to his chief of staff and takes a second signed printout home. Does not mark it as classified, and they say it's not classified, but they mark it as FOUO. Comey then drafts Memo 7, 2-paragraph memo, summarizes another meeting. FBI says, yep, it is classified. Comey does not mark Memo 7 as classified, but it is. FBI determined in June, yep, it contained presidential comments about foreign affairs, and so that's confidential, which is different than, let's say, classified, right? Different statuses, but you shouldn't be sharing it around. President Trump removes Comey as FBI director May 9th and orders Comey be barred from entering the FBI. Smart decision. Then the New York Times publishes an article regarding the January 27th dinner. Okay, so now the memos are being spread around. Richmond, Comey's BFF, a law professor from Columbia or someplace, says, I'm the source, and it goes on. May 12th, Trump then tweets about the possible existence of tapes of his conversations with Comey, and then Comey sends a bunch of the memos, Memos 2, 4, 6, and 7, from his personal email account to the personal email account of one of his attorneys, Patrick Fitzgerald. Before sending, Comey redacts the second paragraph from the memo involving foreign affairs because Comey deems it irrelevant. Then on May 17th, Fitzgerald, the now lawyer, okay, so he was involved in these emails and these memos. And the question, of course, is did Fitzgerald leak anything to anybody? Was he getting these memos and passing them on? In other words, he's complicit in the leaks? Sounds like it might be a crime. Sounds like there might be a fraud there. So maybe we should also be allowed, since the precedent has been set with President Trump, to breach the attorney-client privilege of this attorney, Patrick Fitzgerald. So they can look at all these emails, all the messages back and forth, and just go see what was going on here, just like they did to Trump. He forwarded those to other attorneys. Then Comey also sent a digital photograph of Memo 4. Comey asks Richmond, will you please share the information, but don't share the contents. Leak it to the New York Times. Give it to a particular reporter. Comey is such a piece of work. Then Rod Rosenstein appoints Robert Mueller as special counsel. What a joke. FBI conducts a classification review, determines that Comey did classify the memos. Memo 1, which Comey did not share outside of the FBI. Memos 4, 5, and 6 are FOUO, and that portions of memos 2, 3, and 7 are classified. Memo 2 had 6 words. Memo 3 had information about sources. Memo 7, you get the point. Then in June, FBI begins the process of recovering or deleting the memos from the computer systems of Richmond, Fitzgerald, and Kelly, a process that is completed in January 2018. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions about this Fitzgerald person. A lot of leaks are happening at this time. He was getting memos, some of which presumably are classified or at least in that arena, being sent over to him, and he's passing those out as well. So is he also transmitting classified information? Seems like there needs to be some discovery on this, and an investigation should take place, just like they did with Evan Corcoran, Trump's attorney. And the precedent has been set. Thank you, Beryl Howell, for that one. If there's a crime or a fraud that's worth investigating, the crime fraud exception applies, and you don't have attorney-client privilege. So we'll see if that ultimately comes to fruition. We know that the Comey team is going to be filing a motion to disqualify Lindsay Halligan. We've already seen this, saying, please take notice from James Comey's lawyers that we're going to try to disqualify Lindsay Halligan. And so that motion hasn't hit the docket yet, but they're telling us they're going to file it. But Lindsay Halligan is interesting, an argument to disqualify her. She's an acting U.S. attorney there, not Senate confirmed yet. But Patrick Fitzgerald, the attorney, may very well be a co-conspirator in the case. And so we are going to keep our eye on the Comey prosecution. We came across this clip from the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show, the guys who inherited Trump's time slot. And they dug this clip up from us where Rush Limbaugh is explaining exactly who these people are. Communists.
How many of you have thought, if you've thought about it, how many of you have heard or thought that James Comey was a lifelong Republican? I have. I've always thought that James Comey was a lifelong Republican. I've been told that James Comey is a lifelong Republican. Turns out not to be true. Are you aware that James Comey used to be a communist? In a 2003 interview with New York Magazine, James Comey said before voting for Jimmy Carter in 1980, he'd been a communist. He admitted, I'd moved from communist to whatever I am now. Now, we know that John Brennan, Obama's CIA director, was a communist, or at least had voted for the Communist Party. But I had never heard this about Comey. Now we find out that under Obama, the CIA director and the FBI director both had histories of not just flirtation, but serious immersion into communism. And like the KGB always said, no one ever leaves the KGB. Nobody ever leaves this way of thinking.
Communists live on in perpetuity. That's their whole endgame. It's the slow march through the institutions, as they like to say. It's subversion of the old way in favor of their communist utopia. And now Comey and his lawyers and the rest of them coming under scrutiny for their crimes. We're happy to see it. And we hope that the DOJ gets this message and hears what Svetlana and others are talking about, that Comey's lawyer may be in the middle of a conspiracy and the crime fraud exception must apply. And so discovery is in order. We'll keep our eye on this one, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we
Okay, there you have it, folks. Comey, I hope he gets everything he deserves. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video comes from Robert Gouveia. I am following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. Here we go. And next we have some information from X22 report. But before we get into that, I want to share a little extra here from you, from Paul Joseph Watson. Now, he's British, and he's going to be talking about Great Britain here, England. But what he's talking about is so reminiscent of the United States. Let's take a listen and see what he has to say.
Meet Dale Vince, net worth 107 million. Dale says blaming immigrants is the far-right's favourite distraction, and that the silent majority of Brits love diversity. Dale's seemingly not a part of that silent majority, given that he lives in a literal castle near Stroud, a 94% white area of Britain. Dale loves migrants, just so long as they don't get anywhere near his rather large backyard, and he will lecture you about the necessity of open borders while living in a literal fort surrounded by 15-foot high walls. The majority of Brits love mass migration. Manifestly not true, but let's go with it anyway. The billionaires are the real problem.
Immigration a problem in the UK? No. Why'd you say no? Because it's fundamental to our existence.
There's only animosity towards migrants because the billionaires tell us to hate them.
Why does the UK fear immigration?
We're told to.
By who?
The elites that own us. So the capitalists and the billionaires that are in charge, they tell us to fear it because they need someone to blame for our problems when really they're the ones causing our problems.
Why are people angry about this illegal immigrant stabbing Rhiannon White to death with a screwdriver? This happened after Rhiannon's shift at the migrant hotel, by the way. She was literally serving them food.
Asylum seeker laughed and danced after stabbing a worker in his migrant hotel to death.
But people aren't angry because of that. No, people are angry because the billionaires told us to hate them.
The billionaires.
Why are people angry about this Sudanese illegal immigrant? Swindon man, trying to kidnap a 17-year-old girl off the streets. People are angry because the billionaires told us to hate them.
The billionaires.
Why are people angry at illegal immigrants for loitering outside schools staring at kids?
I was looking through the fence at children playing in the park, in the school, sorry. Just interesting, isn't it? But they've just walked down that path there, had a good look through the railings at some of the children that are playing games in the field from the local school. And off they pop.
People are angry because the billionaires told us to hate them.
The billionaires.
Why are people angry at all the grooming gangs noncing on kids? Because the billionaires told us to hate them.
The billionaires.
Why are people angry that parts of England don't resemble England anymore?
What country is in this video?
Because the billionaires told us to hate them.
The billionaires.
Why are the Irish a bit miffed that the demographic in rural Donegal now looks like this? Because the billionaires told us to hate them.
The billionaires.
I was obviously mistaken. I thought people were angry because they've lost their identities and their communities have been deracinated. I thought people were angry because they could barely afford to pay their rent or get an NHS appointment, while illegals get free hotels, free prepaid debit cards and free front of the queue medical care. I thought people were angry because of all the social degradation and degeneration of their neighbourhoods into low trust societies. I thought people were angry because of all the rapes, murders and terrorist attacks. Apparently not. Those people are only angry because the billionaires told them to be.
The billionaires.
I don't know if you realise, but
Okay, he's going into a commercial
AI
here. So let
employee,
me get
the world's
past that.
first is happening this Saturday. People across the road that leads to revenue Trustpilot, and usually without skill to get sale. This is NVIDIA's AI workflow reminded people with bonuses valued, and a seats are available community.
Right to be angry.
Before the big blast.
People in the UK, people in Scotland, are right to be angry. But it is not illegal immigrants, it's not refugees, it's not asylum seekers who are making our lives more difficult. No. It's greedy landlords, it's tax avoiders, it's billionaires.
Southern Italy, in broad daylight, an African man beats up an Italian girl and tries to kidnap her. Bloody tax avoiders at it again.
Tax avoiders.
I feel much safer with refugees than fascists. A photo taken outside the Barbican Thistle Hotel, where 2 weeks later an illegal migrant staying at that hotel strangled a 20-year-old woman. Fucking landlords.
Greedy landlords.
Reports of sexual offences on trains up by a third since 2015. Bloody billionaires.
It's billionaires.
Brits living in food poverty while illegals fill their boots.
A few months ago, we was running out of food and my mum had no money. There was like no cereals at all or any bread.
Bloody billionaires.
It's billionaires.
And anyway, how can anyone hate illegal immigration when it doesn't even exist?
There's no such thing as illegal immigration as such. What we need is a system whereby every country is able to...
There's illegal immigration.
I'm going to keep saying it till it's drummed in your heads. It's not migrants making us poorer, it's the millionaires and billionaires hoarding all the wealth. Oh, you mean the wealth they use to fund mass migration, which fuels cheap migrant labour and makes us all poorer. George Soros, he's literally spent over $32 billion supporting mass migration because it inflates his financial investments by facilitating cheap labour, which depresses wages. Harry Triggerboff, second richest man in Australia, net worth $30 billion, supports mass migration because it lowers house building costs and facilitates cheap labour, which depresses wages. Ditto for billionaires Michael Bloomberg, Mark Zuckerberg, Reid Hoffman, Bill Gates, Larry Fink. Graham King literally made 750 million quid in the UK from housing illegal immigrants. Alex Langsom made a fortune from government contracts to house illegal immigrants. It's the billionaires telling you to hate immigrants, though.
The
billionaires all bankroll mass migration and live in gated community mansions far away from its consequences. The left says blame the billionaires, then support the continuation of mass migration.
We need it.
Which is making the billionaires even more wealthy. If you hate the billionaires getting richer, why are you supporting the very thing that makes them richer?
We need immigrants. It's simple.
While dismissing ordinary Brits who have seen mass migration, the very thing that you support devastate their communities. While gaslighting those same people, implying they're stupid by asserting their anger isn't justified.
Why does the UK fear immigration?
We're told to.
This really isn't difficult to grasp. The mass migration of people into our country, who are statistically more likely to commit crime, sexual assault, murder, depress wages and generally be a massive drain on public resources. Yeah, that's bad. The billionaires making vast profits from funding mass migration, that's also bad.
All right, folks, there you have it. And if that's not pretty much the atmosphere here in the United States, the Democrats are telling us, it's okay to have illegal immigrants and add $1.5 trillion spending so that we can pay for their health care, pay for their housing, pay for their debit cards, pay for their phone, pay for their education. And it's the rich people that are the bad ones, not the illegal immigrants, not the migrants. Okay, as you can see, this video does come from Paul Joseph Watson. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. I hope you enjoyed that little special. Okay, now let's get to the X22 report. Episode 3753A, is the Fed making a move to counter Trump? Trump is shifting the global economy. That sounds interesting. Let's see what X22 report has to say.
Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the privatized central bank, the World Economic Forum, we know that their entire plan is to try to stop Trump every step of the way. But we know that every time they make a move, it's not going to work in their favor. And remember, they don't want to reduce the rates because, again, when they start to reduce the rates, what happens? The economy starts to pick up. People can afford housing. People can afford automobiles. Other industries are then move forward with the lower rates. People's credit card interest rates are dropped. So I do believe the Fed right now, they're making a move where they're going to tighten to try to counter the rate cuts. But the problem with this is that as they do this, this is going to actually push gold up even further. And this is not going to work in their favor. You have to remember, Trump right now, he is now shifting the entire global economic system. He's shifting it away from the private Western central bankers, and he's taking control over it. And once again, I do believe that the deep state players, they're actually, and the central bankers, they're walking down this path that Trump wants them to go. And by the time they realize what's happening, it's going to be too late. Because as soon as people understand and they see that gold is now moving up very, very quickly, people are going to call into question the fiat currency. And this is going to be a major, major problem for the central bankers. We're going to be talking about what the Fed is planning to do and how this might affect the gold prices. But first, let's talk about what has happened since the Fed came into existence. And we know that they came into existence in 1913, but we really have to look at when the country came off the gold standard, because that's when everything started to really change. That's when you really started to see the inflation, because again, inflation is what? It's when you create currency. The deep state players, they borrow the currency, and that currency goes into circulation, which dilutes the currency, which actually devalues the currency, which means you need a lot more of those pieces of paper to buy the same exact item. And when you look at the housing market, you could see it very, very clearly. In the 70s, when we came off the gold standard and we went full fiat, you started to see the housing prices, they started to really move up very, very quickly. Remember, as the currency loses its value, what happened? We shifted into more and more credit, and the entire economic system moved into credit. Before that, we really didn't see credit cards. Yes, there were some gas cards here and there, but the amount of credit that we saw prior to coming off the gold standard, it was very, very minimal. After we came off the gold standard, that's when things really started to pick up. If you actually go back a little bit in time, all of a sudden they introduced the credit card Master Charge, which is now MasterCard today. And then all of a sudden we got Visa, American Express, and it just went Discover and it kept going and going and going. And during this period of time, you could see it very, very clearly with the housing market, where as time went on, it has become unaffordable. And we're at the point where it's completely and utterly unaffordable, where people just can't purchase a home. Now, yes, they're keeping the rates up, but even with the rates coming down a little bit, the housing prices are very, very high. And if you go back to 2006, 2007, when we were in the housing bubble, we're way above that right now. So that should tell you everything you need to know right there. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is we know the D's, they've been using the shutdown to actually convince everyone that Trump has destroyed the economy. And I do believe this is what the central bankers are going to use, the deep state players, the fake news. They're going to try to turn this all around and say, hey, look, this is Trump's economy. It's failing. And they're hoping that the economy enters into a deep recession. Remember, Trump has been pulling us out of the recession because I do believe the Biden administration, along with the Fed, they actually were in a recession when Trump came into office. This is why Biden said, hey, I'm handing over a very strong economy, which is actually the opposite of what was really happening. Trump has been bringing us out of the recession. Now they're trying to bring us back into one. And actually, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent actually calls out the Democrats and actually shifts the narrative, and he's now blaming them. Trump War Room put this out and said, Secretary Scott Bessent breaks down the cost of the Democrat shutdown. We believe the shutdown may start costing the U.S. economy up to $15 billion a day. And this is a decision the Democrats are making. Absolutely. So you could see at this point in time, everything now is being shifted and everyone's pointing at the Democrats. They own this now. This has nothing to do with Trump. And think about it. Why would Trump need something like this? Because, again, it's going to get bumpy as we transition out of the central bank system. And I do believe as he implements more and more tariffs as we move forward, remember, the central bank system and the tariff system, they really can't operate together. And I do believe Trump knows it's going to get bumpy, and what better way to blame the bumps than on the Democrats. And that's exactly what is happening right now. And I do believe what is going to happen as we move forward is the Fed is going to try to stop Trump every step of the way. And they're going to try to hold off in lowering the rates. Or even if they do lower the rates, they're trying something else where they're going to raise the long-term rates. But I do believe that is also going to fail because that is going to actually help gold. We'll be talking about that in just a sec. But Trump now, he is now going after China. Remember, China tried to pull a fast one along with the deep state players, and they tried to push back on Trump's tariffs. So Trump just upped the tariffs, and China actually folded. Now Trump is calling out China because they're not buying our soybeans, and this is hurting the soybean farmers. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: I believe that China purposely not buying our soybeans and causing difficulty for our soybean farmers is an economically hostile act. We are considering terminating business with China having to do with cooking oil and other elements of trade as retribution. As an example, we can easily produce cooking oil ourselves. We don't need to purchase it from China. So every step of the way, Trump is using leverage against China because, again, Canada, China, Europe, and many other nations, they don't have the leverage. Now, I don't know if you know this. You're not.
Okay, he's going into a commercial here, so let's go ahead and get past that.
Here in the United States, we have the leverage. How do we know we have the leverage? Well, it looks like Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent let us know that. Trump War Room put this out and said, and this is coming from Bessent, if some in the Chinese government want to slow down the global economy through disappointing actions and through economic coercion, the Chinese economy will be hurt the most. And make no mistake, this is China versus the world. And he's absolutely right. And
Okay, China needs the dollars flowing from the United States flowing in there, buying the products that they create. Well, if we're going to create the products here, that's why they're freaking out, because Trump's talking about bringing the production of these products back to the United States. We can't keep sending our money out, and not bringing any money in because we don't produce jack shit. Okay? So, that's the thing. The automobile manufacturers are sending their factories over there, or were sending their factories overseas to China and India, other places where they get the labor pennies on the dollar. Well, all our money is going there to buy those cars and to produce those cars there. Now, that's the whole point of what Trump is trying to do with these tariffs, is to make it better for manufacturers to manufacture here and not have to pay the tariffs, even though the wages might be higher here than what they are someplace else. If you factor in the tariffs, the end product would cost more if they produced it in China or Mexico and then shipped it into the United States and had to pay tariffs on it. So that's his whole point. But then, of course, Democrat federal judges are trying to stop that as well because they hate America.
You could see at this point in time, China does not have the upper hand. Trump, his team, we the people, United States, we have all the leverage against all these nations. Remember, Trump now is shifting the economic system. They shifted it towards China. They shifted everything away from the United States. Trump is now shifting everything back to the United States and away from these nations. And it looks like Trump now, it looks like he's shifting the entire banking system away from the central bank system. And Trump has warned that if people are not or the people in Argentina are not backing Milei, they will lose U.S. funding. Think about that, because right now the U.S. is going to be funding Argentina. Joe Lane says, Trump offers Argentina a bailout. The enemy narrative is that Trump is bailing out Argentina instead of America. Are you catching the signal? Where's the IMF? Who's really in control of the world's financial system, the Rothschilds or Trump? The U.S. has stepped in with an extraordinary bailout of Argentina. The U.S. is providing a $20 billion currency swap line with Argentina's central bank, essentially exchanging stable U.S. dollars with volatile pesos. Did you know that Argentina used to be one of the most wealthy countries in the world? Guess when they were considered one of the wealthiest countries and the significance of what happened in America that year. By 1913, Argentina was the world's wealthiest nations per capita, with its income comparable to that of Western Europe and even surpassing countries like France, Germany, and Italy. In the early 20th century, Argentina's per capita GDP was nearly equal to that of the United States, and it ranked among the top 10 wealthiest nations globally. What happened in America? What changed everything in 1913? Now you're catching the signal. Trump is helping countries with enormous natural wealth to escape from Rothschild's central bank control. The cabal couldn't allow South America countries to be more wealthier than Europe. They corrupted their governments and stole their wealth. They're evil leeches who steal wealth around the world and purposely create poverty to make the population easy to control. Trump is lifting Argentina out of the chains of cabal control, but there is something much bigger happening. Have you ever heard the term regional responsibility? Step back and look at things from a 40,000-foot view. Which wealthy and powerful country should step up and help the countries in the Americas? If they prosper, we prosper. If Argentina's economy grows and they become one of the wealthiest countries in the world again, won't the United States benefit from trading with Argentina? Trump is making another deal. He's betting on Argentina to succeed. Now, their shackles are being removed, and if Argentina succeeds, so do the American people. I think people are really underestimating how much world trade is going to expand when everything is decentralized. We need to think much, much bigger. And he's Well, what happens if the Federal Reserve cuts the rates, but also tightens at the same time? So if the short-term rate is cut, this will help in the short term. But as the Federal Reserve tightens, this actually makes the long-term rates rise. So you have the short-term rates coming down, and then you have the long-term rates moving up. And the short-term rates, yes, this will help the automobile manufacturers because people purchase automobiles. It will help those people with credit cards. But if the long-term rates continually rise, well, that's going to hurt housing, corporate investment, and other long-duration financing. And this is going to be a major problem. So is this what the Fed is trying to do? Now, what happens if the Fed decides, okay, since the shutdown is happening right now, and we don't have the economic information, even though Trump is going to provide them with an inflation report, of course, the Fed could say, listen, look, we're looking at the job market, we're looking at inflation, the country is shut down, we don't have enough data, but what we're going to do is we're going to tighten and we're going to hold the rates steady for maybe another month or two. What happens during this period of time? Well, if they do not cut the short-term rates, this would represent a net tightening of monetary policy. This would drain liquidity more aggressively without offsetting stimulus, leading to tighter financial conditions overall. Based on historical precedent like 2017 to 2019, when they actually did this, the effects would likely slow growth, raise recession risks, and curb inflation, but with potential for market disruptions, which is very, very interesting. So it all depends on what the Fed does right now, but both scenarios, they're not giving Trump what he fully wants. Now, are they doing this on purpose? Maybe, maybe not. I do believe they probably are because, again, Trump is going to war with the central bank system. Remember, he is dismantling the global economic system. He's going to wean us off the Federal Reserve, and we know that the central bankers do not want this to happen. Now, as the Federal Reserve goes down this path, what are we witnessing right now? We're witnessing gold moving up, and we're witnessing silver move up. Peter Saidong, PhD, put this out and said, silver is on fire, up 70% this year, driven by government debts, inflation fears, and demand from AI data centers, all while stockpiles shrivel and mining flatlines. Last week, silver hit the fabled backwardation, something that used to happen once a century. So we're seeing silver move up. We're seeing gold move up. And as gold moves up and gold and silver moves up, what does that tell you? Well, it tells you something very, very interesting. The Gouveia letter and X put this out and said, the big question, what are gold and silver really telling us? Gold and silver are now up more than 4 times the S&P 500 in 2025 during one of the S&P 500's strongest bull runs ever. That is, gold and silver are massively outperforming risky assets during a bull run in those same risky assets. When safe havens are rallying with risky assets, it tells you one thing: confidence in fiat currency is eroding. And while deficit spending and rate cuts into stagflation are major drivers of this sentiment shift, we believe there is more to it. The market is pricing in record levels of AI capex and what will inevitably become an AI war between the U.S. and China.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that right there, and he's absolutely right. I mean, the thing about it is, you know, you knew this was going to happen when they started throwing out trillions upon trillions of dollars during the COVID bullshit, okay? Closing down everybody. You weren't allowed to go to work. You weren't allowed to go to church. You weren't allowed to go to school, but you could go to the saloon. You know, you could do that. You go to the liquor store, you could do that. But, you know, trillions of dollars in debt and interest rates being up what they are. Now, I've seen them worse than what they are back during the Carter days and Reagan days before they came down. But interest rates are up. If it costs more to make something, I mean, if you're manufacturing a product, normally you don't have the money in your pocket or in the bank to buy your raw materials. You have to borrow the money from the bank, buy your raw materials, create your product, sell it, and then pay back the loan. And if it costs more to borrow that money, you've got to pay, you've got to charge more for your product, your end product. And if the person buying that product, the retailer, has to pay more for that product, then they have to sell it for a higher price to make a profit. And then again, if you have to pay your employees more, you got to. That's why this whole system is just kind of screwed up. I don't know, but gold seems to be keeping up with it. All right. So let me go ahead and click on this Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from X22 Report. I am following his channel. I've given him thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, getting back here. Let me close out the chat. I was chatting a little bit with people, but these videos that I share with you here are videos that come directly from the producer's channel. Okay, all these videos here that I'm sharing are videos that I have the links to, and I also have the links to the producer's channel. So, great information. Speaking of the live chats, I want to go ahead and copy this in. Let me copy that into a comment, because when this live stream is over, those live chats just kind of evaporate. And I think this should all be part of the actual video that you're watching. So I will make it permanent to the video. All right, I do want to jump over here, and I will be having a daily news wrap-up coming about 9:30, and I want to share a little snippet here. I hope you're still watching, Deb Rant from Sky News in Australia. Okay, now I've not seen a story like this from Newsmax, CNN. I know they talk about Putin, they talk about Zelensky. Vladimir Putin offers reasonable deal to Ukraine. Let's check this out and see what it's all about.
From President Trump before he flew off to Palm Beach, and Volodymyr Zelensky didn't give us much detail when speaking to journalists after the meeting. Do we think much progress was made?
No, I wouldn't think so. Basically, Zelensky came to Washington looking for Tomahawk missiles. He seems to, apparently, he's offered a trade. He said that Ukraine is going to provide the United States with drones in exchange for the Tomahawks. It's utterly ridiculous. The other reason why it's ridiculous is because Ukraine can't use the Tomahawk missiles. They have nothing with which to launch the Tomahawk missiles. Tomahawks can be fired in one of three ways: by a guided missile destroyer, from a submarine, or from a Typhoon land-based system. They don't have any of the three. So it's puzzling to me what the discussion is really all about.
Yeah, because President Zelensky was talking about Donald Trump's success in bringing this sort of fragile ceasefire in Gaza. But of course, the issues and the political pressures and the bargaining chips are very different in that scenario, presumably, to any pressure that the USA can apply to Russia.
Right. They're utterly unrelated. So this seems to me to have been an exercise in window dressing. Perhaps Zelensky was using the meeting as a way to get to Trump before Trump meets with Putin in Budapest. I don't know, but the Tomahawk thing is really crazy. And in the United States, you have all sorts of media outlets saying, Trump is denying Zelensky a potentially game-changing weapon, and
mainstream
utterly
here in the
false
US.
and utterly ridiculous. It's not a game-changing weapon any more than all the other weapons that were said to be game-changing weapons have not changed the game. We've heard the same thing when the Ukrainians asked for HIMARS, when they asked for Patriot systems, when they asked for ATACMS and F-16s. They haven't changed the game. And basically, the war is lost. And the sooner that the Ukrainians come to this realization, the better off they'll be. And Putin seems to me to have a reasonable deal in place. Ukraine cannot join NATO, but Ukraine can join the EU. That seems absolutely a fair bargain to me.
But they also have to concede land.
Of course they do. But again, the land that they will be ceding, they themselves have been attacking since 2014.
Absolutely.
The Ukrainians are being a bit disingenuous here. They want the they claim to want the land in the Donbass, eastern Ukraine, but they don't want the ethnic Russian citizens on that land. So they've been doing everything that they can to disenfranchise those people for the past 30 years.
Yes.
So it's time to be honest.
Yep.
Putin, in a way, is giving the Ukrainians what they want, which is a Ukraine for ethnic Ukrainians. And that would be a way to get rid of, which they've wanted to do, the ethnic Russians. It's not something that is often said in public, but it happens to be the truth.
Absolutely.
And James, when you say the war is lost, what about reports?
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, but that is something that I talked about when this Ukraine-Russia thing broke out. The people in the Donbass region were begging Russia for help because the Ukrainian Azov divisions, the Nazi divisions, were bombing the Russian people in those areas. And the Russian people was begging Putin for help. Putin tried to negotiate this with Biden and Zelensky, but, he got nowhere until he actually took over those areas. So there you have it. And let me know in the comments if you've heard anything like this from CNN, well, anybody, even Fox. Let me know, whoever. All right, as you can see, this does come from Sky News, Australia. Thank you, Deb Rant. Let me give this a thumbs up. Great information. Okay, let's jump back here again. And there was another comment. M41 Coco gave me a wave, so I waved back at her, and I copied that into a comment. Let me give you some information here from Augusta Gold. X22 was talking about that. Let's see what Augusta Gold has to say.
Did you know the biggest threat to your retirement is not something that's talked about often?
Our increased longevity in America means default retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, and TSPs may not suffice.
If you have over $100,000 in your retirement account, get instant access to a free 2-minute report from Augusta Precious Metals that reveals the one step you can take to secure your financial future. Text SAFE to 35052 today.